Hello everybody, it's Foxy speaking, and welcome to another episode of Foxy's Fun Inspirational Chats. And today I will be your host. And in this episode, this is going to be a video of story time with Foxy. I did a story time, it was around about two story time episodes in about 2021, about last year. And I know I did a few other episodes of reading a book, but it was a non-fiction book, and it was a book about the history of railways. But I think the time has certainly come again for me to read a story, and actually this is one of my childhood stories. Well, it's a book with stories which used to be read to me when I was a little boy. This is Mog Time. Mog Time. 6 stories about Mog. Mog Time, 6 stories about Mog. Written by the most distinguishable author, Judith Kerr. Although it's spelt Kerr, it's pronounced Kerr, who was German born but lived in England for a very, very long time of her life. I mean, she died very, very sadly, Judith Kerr did. I mean, you know, she was 95, almost 96 at the time of her death, but she published this very, very long time ago before she went. But I have the deepest respect to Judith Kerr, and this story she wrote, it was a part of my childhood. It really was just a part of my childhood. I have just the most immeasurable, profound respect for Judith Kerr since acquiring ownership of one of her most wonderful stories, her most famous story of Mog the Cat. Let's give it a read. But since it's 6 stories, I'm only going to pick one, not do more than one, but yes, no. Mog Time. 6 stories about Mog, written and illustrated by Judith Kerr. Wonderful author, but rest in peace, Judith Kerr, 1923 to 2019. Although you do get people who are much older than that, but a bit irrelevant, time to get to the episode. We're going to read Mog the Forgetful Cat. Once there was a cat called Mog. She lived with a family called Thomas. Mog was nice, but not very clever. She didn't understand a lot of things. A lot of other things she forgot. She was a very forgetful cat. Sometimes she ate her supper, then she forgot that she had eaten it. Sometimes she thought of something in the middle of washing her leg, then she forgot to wash the rest of it. Once she forgot that cats can't fly, but most of all she forgot her cat flap. The cat flap led the kitchen into the garden. Mog could go out and in again. It was her own little door. Very much so with a cat flap, I would say. The garden always made Mog very excited. She smelled all the smells. She chased the birds. She climbed the trees. She ran round and round with a big fluffed up tail. And then she forgot the cat flap. She forgot that she had a cat flap. She wanted to go back into the house, but she couldn't remember how. In the end, she sat outside the kitchen window and meowed until someone let her in. Afterwards, you could always tell where she had sat. This made Mr. Thomas very sad. He said, "Oh, bother that cat." But Debbie said, "Oh, she's nice." Once Mog had a very bad day. Even the start of the day was bad. Mog was still asleep. Then Nicky picked her up. He hugged her and said, "Nice kitty." Mog said nothing, but she was not happy. Then it was breakfast time. Mog forgot that cats have milk for breakfast. She forgot that cats only have eggs as a treat. She ate an egg for her breakfast. Mr. Thomas said, "Bother that cat." Debbie said, "Nicky doesn't like eggs anyway." Mog looked through her cat flap. It was raining in the garden. Mog thought, perhaps the sun is shining in the street. When the milkman came, she ran out. The milkman shut the door. The sun was not shining in the street after all. It was raining. A big dog came down the street. Mog ran. The dog ran too. Mog ran right round the house, and the dog ran after her. She climbed over the fence, she ran through the garden and jumped up outside the kitchen window. She meowed a big meow, very sudden and very loud. Mrs. Thomas said, "Bother that cat." Debbie said it wasn't her fault. Mog was very sleepy. She found a warm, soft place and went to sleep. She had a lovely dream. Mog dreamed that she had wings. She could fly everywhere. She could fly faster than the birds, even quite big birds. Suddenly she woke up. Mrs. Thomas said, "Bother that cat." Debbie said, "I think you look nicer without a hat." Debbie gave Mog her supper and Mog ate it all up. Then Debbie and Nicky went to bed. Mog had to rest too, but Mr. Thomas wanted to see the fight. Mr. Thomas said, "Bother that cat." Mog thought, "Nobody likes me." Then she thought, "Oh, Debbie likes me." Debbie's door was open. Debbie's bed was warm. Debbie's hair was soft like kitten fur. Mog forgot that Debbie was not a kitten. Debbie had a dream. It was a bad dream. It was a dream about a tiger. The tiger wanted to eat Debbie. It was licking her hair. Debbie shouted. Mog jumped. Mr. and Mrs. Thomas said, "Bother, bother, bother that cat." Debbie said nothing. She was still crying because of the bad dream. Oh. Mog ran out of the room and ran right through the house and out of her cat flap. She was very sad. The garden was dark. The house was dark too. Mog sat in the dark and thought dark thoughts. She thought, "Nobody likes me. They've all gone to bed. There's no one to let me in. And they haven't even given me my supper." Then she noticed something. The house was not quite dark. There was a little light moving about. She looked through the window and saw a man in the kitchen. Mog thought, "Perhaps the man will let me in. Perhaps he will give me my supper." She meowed her biggest meow, very sudden and very, very loud. The man was surprised. He dropped his bag, it made a big noise, and everyone in the house woke up. Mr. Thomas ran down to the kitchen and shouted, "A burglar!" The burglar said, "Bother that cat!" Mrs. Thomas telephoned the police. Debbie let Mog in and Nicky hugged her. A policeman came and they told him what had happened. The policeman looked at Mog. He said, "Oh, what a remarkable cat. I've seen watchdogs, but never a watch cat. She will get a medal." Debbie said, "I think she'd rather have an egg." Mog had a medal. She also had an egg every day for breakfast. Mr. and Mrs. Thomas told their friends about her. They said, "Mog is really remarkable." And they never, or almost never, said, "Bother that cat." The end. A wonderful story. If I may say so, this Mog story, or the story collection of Mog the cat, it was a story my grandparents used to read to me when I was a little boy, believe this or not. This book was given to me by my grandparents when I was round about 6 years of age. So I've owned this had ownership of this for a very, very long time now, since my grandparents gave it to me. They used to read it to me quite a lot. Well, certainly did my grandmother used to read it. And I'm terribly grateful for them for giving me this wonderful book. Really, I am. Yes. Well, yes. Well, thanks all indeed for watching, everybody. Please let me know what your thoughts were in the comments down below. Thanks ever so much indeed for watching, and I shall certainly see you in the very next video. Ta-ta, another time. From Foxy. Certainly is it quite a good story, the Mog book. And I don't know if many of you have read the Mog stories, but I would certainly recommend it. Thanks for watching. Ta-ta, another time.